This is RevTech Podcast, where we discuss everything from business processes to measurement and technical alignment. The RevTech mission focuses on effectively managing and optimizing the go-to-market strategy through methodologies, tools, and best practices. We discuss the success criteria and technical fit guides for decision-making and ensure solutions align with the business goals. In this episode, our guest is Aviv Ben, Head of Partnership at Sweep, and Benjamin Zeiss, Head of RevOps. Welcome to our show.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, we're happy to be here.
Super happy to have you guys here. So let's dive right in. Give us the high-level overview of what Sweep is and what it does.
I'll take that one. So Sweep is a no-code platform that enables companies to customize and scale any Salesforce configuration without the dev time. So whether you're a Salesforce Pro or you're new to the platform, Sweep allows you to create and manage your CRM processes, rules, automations, all with an intuitive drag and drop interface.
Okay, so it's exclusive to Salesforce.
Today.
Yeah. Great. And tell us a little bit about how it got started. I know you're not founders, but what was the founder story and how did it begin?
So the founder story is actually an interesting story. I'll try to make it, short. They're second-time founders. They sold their first company to Wix.com, which was very B2C oriented in their perspective, but they led the B2B business at Wix when they joined it. So when they started using Salesforce, like all of us that are using Salesforce, they just felt I would name it lack of agility, right? The complications around managing Salesforce in an organization. How much time does it take to process requests? And we can never narrow it down to the Salesforce organization didn't move as fast as the business. And we all wanted to be with entrepreneurial spirit, they just decided to solve it. So this is their story.
Yeah. Well, and that's very much how Salesforce operates, right? They have a pretty vast ecosystem of consultants and add-on tools, and they understand that. So that makes a lot of sense. And so why did each of you decide to join Sweep, and how long have you guys been there?
So Ben is longer than I have. Ben is actually one of the first employees, so I guess around 2 years, right? Yeah, and I'm just 2 months. But I think we have, quite similar story. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong. We're both Salesforce geeks. We're coming from this Salesforce industry or RevOps industry. We've both been RevOps for other companies and very much obsessed with this term. And, the best way to say it is this is our dream product, right? This is what we always wanted and always complained about. I can tell from my personal angle, when I first heard about Sweep, I remember the day they went out of stealth and you saw the website, and my first thought was, how didn't I think about it? And I think this is the best, it's also the best experience and also the best kind of company to work at, because we're big believers in the product. We use it. We were obsessed with it. It's just great. Did I miss something, Ben? Your perspective?
Nothing to add other than we use it quite a lot.
I'm going to ask maybe a controversial question. If Salesforce is such, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but it's so hard to manage, why not just use a different CRM?
It's a good question. Actually, it also comes back to the founding story of Sweep. So when they were evaluating the problem space, they kind of came to a realization there were a few things that you could do. You could try to build a better CRM, or you could try to build a tool that enables the CRMs that we have today to function well. And so they spoke with a lot of folks that came from the world of CRM, people that had competed with Salesforce, people that came from Salesforce. And one of the things that they heard over and over again was Salesforce as a CRM is a very good tool, but what makes it so powerful, and you already alluded to this, Lizzie, is the ecosystem around it. Actually, the platform as a service that lives underneath it, Force.com, is so well architected and so easy to use and to integrate with, that enables that entire ecosystem around it. And that's one of the things that makes Salesforce.
Yeah. Earlier this week, we were talking about how powerful Salesforce is. It's just trying to harness that power and make it usable is the challenging part. So yeah, that makes complete sense.
And we can argue with the numbers. It's still one of the biggest software companies in the world, and the majority of businesses are still using Salesforce and will continue using Salesforce. This is the golden standard.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what I would consider to be the main reason why you stay with Salesforce and you continue to acquire customers that are using it, because there's an ocean of customers you can work with. Right? Why would I change this right away to other CRM systems that, they're not operating the same amount of fish in the pond, right? So I can see this. How do you see the market in that space? Just out of curiosity, you think that the market is offering similar solutions at this point? I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the competition soon, but is there any development in that space that you would consider to be maybe a competition, but maybe somebody has a different secret sauce in the same space?
I think everybody, all the go-to-market technology these days is, besides, I'll put AI on the side for a second, I'm probably going to talk about it later, is focusing on the sales rep experience and how can we make them more efficient. From the technological side, like from the product side, everybody's going into comprehensive solutions and trying to do consolidated text that can give a lot of power on one tool. I think when you're talking specifically about the Salesforce ecosystem, and this is, by the way, why I think Sweep is different, we're not just catering one persona in the organization. We're not just looking on the AE experience and how to make his life easier. This is super important, but it's not tool just for them. And we see a lot of tools around the Salesforce ecosystem. Some of them are looking just on the admin side. Some of them are looking more on the technical side. Some of them are looking more on the user side. What makes Sweep, at least in our opinion, very interesting, that it's once you improve your Salesforce in general, everybody earns. So it's a tool for admins, the same as it's a tool for go-to-market leaders. So, and we are big believers that if you improve your, we call it Salesforce velocity, you will improve your revenue velocity.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I want to comment one thing that you just said. This is why I asked this question. You're essentially not saying we have a point solution. This is a whole another practice around using Salesforce in that area. And I think that's what I'm calling a secret sauce, right? It's just a different approach to thinking about the product, thinking how this impacts the entire organization instead of just one particular group of individuals in the company. So this is awesome.
I think I'll add something, Dimitris. I think, and Ben will probably agree with me, but in our experience as RevOps people, we purchased a lot of tools probably in the last few years. Some of them are fantastic and change the business completely. But the first question, especially from the people that approves the budget, when we introduced a new technology, was something around, but can't we do it on Salesforce? And this is a valid question. We're already paying for this platform. Can't we do this on Salesforce? And then the answer was always around, yes, we can, but it's hard, it's long, it's expensive. Something doesn't make sense. So it makes sense to buy an end solution that integrates to Salesforce and gives you this capability. And what we see now is actually the other trend, exactly the opposite, right? People will going back to Salesforce and understand we are giving them the power to really build the capabilities over Salesforce and not to rely on external.
Yeah. The velocity piece, I always think like if we could get our Salesforce if we weren't spending so much time managing Salesforce, we'd have a lot more time to be selling or marketing or doing any of the other things that actually drive the business forward. And I know it's probably deeper than that, but even that time savings is going to lead to better velocity in the business in general. And you just nailed, I think, the last couple of years for me where I'm looking at partner tech tools and I'm like, they're like, can't we just do this in Salesforce? I'm like, no, I mean, we could, but it's just going to take more time. And so I'm excited to really dig into Sweep. You started to touch on a little bit in terms of like the personas that this is helping and who you're selling to, but what type of customers are you seeing success with and that can really benefit from the product?
So it's funny. I think we're all talking about it. We've all come from slightly different backgrounds, and the Salesforce problem that we're discussing is pervasive. So we're working with some large B2B tech companies, and we're working with very small medical offices, right? Like, and everything in between. Anybody who's on Salesforce is kind of feeling this pain, and Sweep is able to address those pains. Now, there are definitely certain parts of the platform that appeal to different segments of that audience. Like, for example, the large enterprise audience is really interested in the documentation feature. Whereas like a smaller upstart new to Salesforce might be really interested in our go-to-market templates, right? So there is stuff in the platform for you no matter where you are in your Salesforce journey. And that's very much the goal of the product roadmap and where we're taking Sweep.
That makes complete sense. And it's interesting. I was starting to think like if you're an enterprise company and you have a few people doing Salesforce admin, do you need a tool like this? And it sounds like there's features that will benefit there too. And how are you selling right now? Are you you're still a little in startup mode? Like, are you going product-led sales? Do you have a sales team or salespeople? Are you doing marketing? What does that mix look like?
So I think you probably said it right. It's still a startup mode, but we definitely have our sales team, which is working on deals and nailed our first year deals. Generally today, we're focusing mostly on selling direct to companies. And as you said, different, as Ben said as well, like different sizes of companies, different industries. And this is the fun about Salesforce, right? Everybody is using it. So it's a very big playground. So today we're selling directly to companies, but we also started to work on the offering to partners and to the Salesforce ecosystem, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later. The exciting thing is that we're soon going to launch a free self-serve version. So we are hoping to see, every Salesforce admin that wants to, change the way he's doing things on Salesforce using Sweep as well. But today it's mostly direct to companies.
Awesome. I'm excited to see what that free version is going to look like. And you quickly mentioned partnerships. What do partnerships look like today? Do you have any tech integrated partners? It sounds like you're starting to look at channel partners or resellers, but what does partnerships look like?
So yeah, actually partners it's a tricky term in the world of Salesforce because we call it business partners, but Salesforce partners go under Salesforce partners.
Yeah.
And as we said, this is a huge market of services. From system integrators to managed services, this is a huge market. And we're definitely working closely with them. I think the most interesting narrative, especially for a person that hears about, Sweep's one-liner for the first time, they probably think something around the lines of, oh, they're going to take my work, right? They're going to eat my lunch. Because now you can do things that were complicated. You can do it with no code or drag and drop. It's not the way we're looking on it. A, because the market is massive. B, because we think that everybody deserves a better Salesforce experience. So even the customers that are choosing to work with Salesforce partners, which is the most of them, deserve getting a better service. And we are the enabler of this better service because then you will see it in a second. Our visibility functions, the way that we are turning Salesforce into a visual platform, which is very intuitive and fun, it's a way for them also to improve their service. So, we're now working on tightening the relationship with the partners ecosystem, so they will be customers and then obviously to go after integrated partnerships as well.
Yeah, when you mention like it's people being worried it's going to take their job, it reminds me of AI, where it's like, it's not actually going to take your job. It's going to replace the mundane things, the complicated pieces that are not delivering a ton of value and actually let you go and deliver some real value. And so that's very exciting. I think often with Salesforce, it's like just to get something going, it's very challenging. I'm like, well, what if we could do all the things we actually wanted to do and not get stuck on the stage one of fixing a solution?
And again, I'm trying to, I might be optimistic, but the way I'm envisioning the partners world is that, again, the partner experience, when he will present the project to his customer, they will do it over Sweep. Yep. So especially for the value-based partners, the people that are charging their customer based on value and based on retainers, this makes a lot of sense. And this is a tool that just can improve the overall experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do we want to dive into the demo?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Happy to.
Let's do it.
We should.
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to share up my screen. Prior to joining Sweep, I had been a Salesforce admin for quite some time, about 7 years. And all of my problems started like this. So I'm using Aviv as my scapegoat here, but it always started with a text or a Slack or an email that something weird is happening in Salesforce and they don't know why. And usually what would happen is I would take a ton of time diagnosing what is this problem, what's going on, and then a little bit of time implementing a solution. So here I've got that exact same example. So Aviv reached out to me. He's got a bunch of ops that have the proposal sent date filled in, but he hasn't sent the proposal. And Aviv was really nice to me, and he included a report of all of the times that happened instead of me having to ask him to give that. So I'm just opening up this Salesforce report. I'm taking a look. Oh, and I need to sign in, which is great.
This happens to me 15 times a day. So
Aviv shares with me this report, and I'm able to open it up and see that the exact situation that he's describing is true. So I have all of these opportunities. You can see that they have a proposal sent date, all of which are pretty recent, but the proposals haven't been sent yet. And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. And my workflow is I'm going to open up the Salesforce setup. Maybe I have a good idea. Maybe I know this org really, really well. I'm the only person developing in it. And I know there's an automation here that might be touching this. But if I'm working in a larger org, I'm working with other people, I kind of have to sift through a bunch of information to find, where is the automation that's likely automation that's causing this issue. Now, if I'm using Sweep, it's a little bit different. So I can open up Sweep and accomplish the same thing. So I'm going to log in here to what we call our canvas. So this is a visual workspace for Salesforce diagnostics and productivity. So right now, what I'm looking at is everything that exists in my Salesforce represented in this visual manner. And so what I'm going to do to figure out what's going wrong is I'm going to start with our documentation feature. And I'm going to go look for the proposal sent date field that we spoke about. And within the proposal sent date field, I can drill in and I can see any automations that are using this field. So I have a flow called the quoting flow that's referencing this proposal sent date field. I can drill into that flow, and I have, first of all, I have an AI generated description describing what this flow does, but I also have a chatbot here at the bottom where I can ask super specific questions. So I can say, what does this flow do with the proposal sent date field? Now the AI is reading all of my metadata and it's returning an answer. So this flow, the quoting flow, updates the proposal sent date field and the opportunity object. It assigns the current date to the variable proposal date, and then it's going to update that field, right? So I see here, okay, so I have this flow that anytime I'm entering this proposal stage, it's updating the proposal sent date field to today's date. Now that used to make sense for the way my org works, but things have changed. So now we actually move the stage to proposal before we send proposals. And it looks like I forgot to update this flow. I didn't think about the fact that this flow was happening. And now I have some inaccurate data in my org that needs to get cleaned up. And so pretty simple, I can go ahead and make that change, but I don't know what other impacts will occur if I just, turn off this flow or deactivate a node. So I'm going to say, what else does this flow do? And it's going to give me like a longer explanation of other things that occur in this flow. Now, this is a pretty basic flow. I'm using it for illustrative purposes, but you can see that it's also setting the close date to be 7 days from today and sending an email alert. And so those are 3 things that are going on in this flow. For me, I only have the close date. It's working exactly how I want it to. The email alert, that's working exactly how I want it to. So the only problematic piece of this flow for me is the proposal sent date. And I know that if I turn off the proposal sent date automation here, it's not going to cause me issues anywhere else in my org. So I have 2 options now. The first one is the old school way, using Salesforce. I can click, I can open this up in Salesforce. It'll open this specific flow and I can turn off this node. Alternatively, I could use Sweep to recreate this automation and I can deactivate the flow as a whole. So you can use either. I want to illustrate what it would be like to build in Sweep. So I'm going to take that step. So in order to create this automation, what I can say is I can click on proposal and I can click automations and I can click create automation. And so it's saying when I'm entering proposal, I want to do a few things. So now I do not want to update the proposal sent date. The only things that I want to do is I want to update the record's close date. So I'm going to click update this record close date. And you can see here that everything that I'm doing is sort of in plain English. So I want this close date to be 7 days after I trigger this automation. So 7 days after I enter proposal. And I also want to send an email alert. So send an email. I'm going to say opportunity ending proposal. And I want this to go to the owner's manager. So I'm going to go to the owner ID, drill down, go to the manager ID, drill down, and grab their email address. And I can name this automation, click create, and I'm done. So that's one way that we use Sweep to sort of jump in, understand what's going on, diagnose the problems, which are really about 90% of the work, and then go ahead and implement quick solutions. I also wanted to show sort of what the flow would be like if I were to build something from scratch in Sweep. So I'm just going to create an inbound lead funnel. I'm going to call it Benjamin's inbound leads. And what this will do is it will create a record type and a lead process. And here I'm going to be customizing pick list values for the lead status. That's what the screen is telling me here. I can drop it anywhere on my canvas. I'm going to drop it right here right now. And I'm just going to create a few statuses. So I've got new, outreach, connected, demos scheduled. And I just want to show you how comprehensive we can get with the Sweep platform and what we're able to build in. So first of all, this is going to be a converted step so that when I convert my leads, this will be like the quote unquote converted status. I could also add like validation. So I can say, hey, I can't move the lead status to outreach without sending any outbound emails. So I have a field called activity count, which is a roll-up field. The roll-up was also created with Sweep. And I can say that the activity count has to be greater than 0 in order to advance. And if I want to get really fancy, I can say when the activity count is greater than 0 and the activity count has increased, then I want to auto advance the next stage. Also, I want to make sure that when my leads are created, they get assigned appropriately. So here I can set up assignment rules. So I can set up a rule for my enterprise BDRs and for my SMB BDRs. So I'll say enterprise BDRs, and I'll just go with a simplistic example, but I can say, hey, if employees is greater than 1,000, so when a lead is created and employees is greater than 1,000, then I want to round robin it to the assignment group. So these assignment groups are created and managed within Suite. And I could also choose to notify the owner via Slack, email, but right now I'm just going to click Do Not Notify. And then I'll create a second rule. Same idea, but for my SMB BDRs, and say, let's make sure that employees is less than 1,000, and also that it's greater than 0. So if it's blank, it doesn't assign. And I want to make sure that that assigns to my SMB group. And I do not want to notify. And I can create the rule. And then lastly, another thing that we can do, I know I already showed automations, but I'm going to layer in more automations. So the first one is if I enter connected without a lead source. So if I enter connected, and here I can add like further conditions. So I can say that the lead source is empty. Again, this like plain English builder, making it super easy to communicate outwards to the org what's going on. I can post to Slack. I can say the lead source, there's a typo there, is blank for, and I can embed the name of the lead in here. So I can say full name from company. Please fill it out, which is great. But what I could also do is I can add a button here that says update lead source. And I can add a lead source field. So what this is going to do is whenever these criteria are met, it's going to push a Slack message to the recipient, which I didn't set here. So here I'm going to set it to the lead owner. It's going to push a Slack alert with a button. They'll click the button and they'll be able to, from within Slack, update Salesforce and without having to leave their Slack window.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's very, very convenient.
It's very convenient. It's streamlining the workflow for people and very much in line with how we think, right? We want things to be, like Aviv said before, this is an easy process for me to set up. It's also an easy process for the user. And in that same vein, I'm going to create one more automation. I know, I hope I'm not overdoing it here.
No,
I can say, so when I enter this demo scheduled phase, I want to convert the lead. So I can say, I want to use an existing account. And so any lead that's converted, I want it to go to this matched account. So this matched account is created by Suite using our lead to account matching algorithm. And we can say if there's no matched account, then I want to create the account with the record type of mid-market. I can set any fields here that aren't set in my lead conversion mapping within Salesforce. And I can optionally create set settings for the contact, whether or not I want to create an opportunity, etc. And I can say auto convert lead. All that's left, I click deploy. I choose what I'm deploying here. So here I was just playing with this inbound leads funnel, and I can choose which org I want to send it to. Do I want to send it to a sandbox? Do I want to send it to production? I can preview the changes that were made. So here I'm creating something new. So everything is kind of showing up here, and then I can click deploy. But I think that is a pretty comprehensive overview of some of the, I wouldn't call it comprehensive. It's just some of the things that Suite can do.
It took us 10 minutes, to really see all of that. And I can see a lot of value already, right? For teams. You showed how this is working for different groups, how they can benefit and how quickly they can really see what is going on. So let me ask you this. You essentially enabling Salesforce for the users, right? I feel like what we just saw right now is, on the one hand, it's automation, all of this, but in fact, you are bringing more users to Salesforce because of that simplicity that you offer with your product, right? So let's say I have an SDR leader, and we talked about how to automate or create some flows. Hey, you know what? Here we go, and somebody can go through this as a no Salesforce admin person, right? I don't have to be certified. I can just go over all these steps and I can understand what's going on and what it does. That's extremely powerful, in my opinion. This is where you're bringing all these teams on the same page and you say, this is how it works, right? Don't call me 10 times. Don't ask me to pull reports, show you that this is working and it's not working. I mean, here you go. This is a black and white proof for you that this is how it's working. Is it fair to say all of this?
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely. So collaboration is something that we very much have in mind with how Sweep was built. So some things I didn't show, we have like a commenting feature. So we can invite people into Sweep who we don't want to be able to make any changes to configuration, but we do want them to be able to see what's going on. So like, your GTM leaders is a great example of that, right? So they can see the process, see how it's built, and it's explained to them in plain English, and they can collaborate with you on it. It's like, hey, actually, we're starting to see that the criteria shift. So rather than, our ICP is companies with 100 employees and above, we're actually seeing 200 employees and above. So let's adjust the criteria in Salesforce. And I can see what the criteria in Salesforce are today. If I'm a GTM leader right now, that's a total black box to me. So it fosters collaboration. It fosters an open environment where we're able to have a dialogue about how our Salesforce works and whether or not that is the Salesforce we need for our org today. And the way that it's built also enables us to almost iterate in a really, really quick manner, right? So the bane of my existence as an admin was that I would make a change and it would break something somewhere else in the org that I had no clue was even connected. And I still am not sure how that piece was connected, but I need to go and fix that and hope that fix doesn't go break something somewhere else. And I'm not playing this like endless game of whack-a-mole trying to solve my Salesforce issues. This platform makes it really easy, and it silos the changes that you make to just be the changes that you're making and the changes that you intend. So it really fosters the collaboration like we spoke about, and also it makes the admin's life a lot easier.
That's where, as a sales leader, I was just thinking through, because you had mentioned documentation at the beginning, but what you're just saying, the collaboration is like half the time, like, why is this happening? What is this even referencing? Why do I see this lead in here? And I think about it as like, when I get a Tableau dashboard, I don't know what's there, but when I get a re-dashboard, I can go look at the query and understand why it's pulling in XYZ thing. Very simplified, but it would be awesome for me to be able to understand, like if we just changed this or did this, we could probably see what we wanted to see.
When I joined Sweep, one of the first things that I want to do, especially as a go-to-market team member, is what is our process today, right? You want to learn this process. So even for the sake of like training, ramp up, onboarding, I remember the session that I had both with our head of sales and also with Ben. And instead of opening Salesforce and explaining to me what are we doing in our sales, it's like, here is Sweep. And the only one thing that I would not agree with Dimitri is that Dimitri said it's black and white. It's very colorful. It's not just black and white. It's a beautifully designed platform that it makes you fun to look at it. And it's intuitive. You're scrolling, you're zooming, you can collaborate, you can train your people. And instead of doing those evaluations that we all know, right? Every 3 to 6 months, there is a project for someone in the organization. It could be the CRO, the head of sales, or the RevOps. Let's evaluate our processes, right? Let's do a session to analyze and understand what we have, what we're doing, all this preparation phase, and let's understand what we have today before we make change. It's just so you always see what you have today, and you can see it in a very easy way.
Yeah. I mean, Salesforce for most companies is it tells you everything about your business. Like it's so important to understand what's happening and should be the source of truth for go-to-market. But I feel so stupid. I'm like, I can't even pull the reports I want to because I don't know what field to put in to pull this right data sometimes. And so, yeah, this is
something
like a
we hear from customers a lot. And I think that reporting is too difficult, and to get the information that I need and that I want is cumbersome and confusing. And so one of the things that I like to tell people is like, this is a symptom. This is a symptom of either an over-engineered Salesforce or having to work around problems that were built in the past. And so one of the things that we're focused on is making sure that the architecture is right, and the way that we build things and the way that we architect things enables you to keep the base layer that everything you're building your Salesforce on top of as steady, simple, sturdy. Because when it's not sturdy, that's when you have these workarounds and the extra fields and the this and the that, and that's when it becomes impossible to run even the most basic of reports.
So sounds like guys. So I have a bunch of questions, but let me ensure I understand all of these benefits, right? So number one, the Salesforce adoption, solving for that quite a bit, right? Which is huge. I mean, how many times we've seen occur that, oh, you know what, we have a Salesforce, but we don't use this properly, and we need to have a bunch of people to really come in and help us to solve it. Similar tone is with the data handling, right? So it sounds like you guys also solving for that, right? And you're removing complexities within the process that is embedded in Salesforce, which we just saw in a colorful way. So let's talk about cost and cost of customization specifically. What is your take on this, and how actually you guys are helping, organizations to mitigate that risk? I mean, my story again, okay, we need more Salesforce admins. I mean, why? Why I need more Salesforce admins? Oh, because the Salesforce is giving us recommendation that for that many employees, I need to have that many admins. I'm not buying it, right? So how are you solving for that?
So I would say with a platform like Sweep, you can really, you can make a couple of decisions for your org. So first of all, you can scale each individual admin to be more than what we would say. Like, we can make an admin more effective than they are without Sweep. That we've seen time and time again, particularly with our customers who are really, really Salesforce savvy. They're like, yeah, I could do this, but it's much easier to do it this way. They're faster. And again, that architecture layer becomes, when built correctly, it makes future changes much faster, right? It also makes fixing old things much faster. So we're able to scale the resources that you have much more effectively. What we've also seen is some orgs that will go for a more analytical person instead of hiring for that Salesforce skill set, because they're confident that a smart, competent analytical person can also get involved with Salesforce using a tool like Sweep. That's what we've seen sort of at the lower end of the market. At the upper end of the market, enterprise, lots of Apex, millions of objects and Lightning Web Components, we see really not necessarily a change for the size of the teams or the cost of the teams, but the amount of work that they're able to get done. We've seen like their throughput increase. And that's where the investment pays off at the upper end of the market. So
based on your experience, is it roughly 1/4, 1/3 of the headcount that you're helping to solve for? What would be your number? I know it's not exactly science and depends on the skill set and the organization size. I get it. But I'm just trying to put my like simple back of the napkin math in my head and help to understand audience as well. Like, hey, your productivity in that space goes up. And as you're adding more systems, these people can be more effective integrating them and maybe making them more reliable, or even eliminate some of them, which is an extra layer of cost reduction, right?
we haven't done like a formal study on this, so I'm hesitant to put an official number around it. I will say, like, anecdotally, you're in the right neighborhood.
There's a lot, by the way.
My experience, you typically just don't do everything in Salesforce that you would like to, because there's not enough time to do everything you would like to. And at a minimum, if this gets you to do everything you would like to do in Salesforce, that with the same amount of people, that is a huge win. And then you probably can gain further efficiencies there. I do have a question. Like, if you started with Salesforce and Sweep early on, you could probably build something that's great and set up well. What are you doing with companies that you come in and their Salesforce is a disaster? Do you help in that process? What does the integration look like? What does that entail?
So it's a great question. So the documentation feature is like coming into a messy Salesforce is a lifesaver, right? You're able to drill down to a specific step in the process and understand what's all the automation that applies here? What's all the validation that applies here? You're able to use the chatbot to understand, what do these things do? What is necessary? What is unnecessary? What is redundant? And then you can begin to go ahead and make changes to simplify. And that's really what we're seeing. And particularly like the messy orgs that we see, the cause of it is a lot of different hands being in Salesforce over the amount of time, right? So maybe we've switched partners 4 times, or we have 4 different partners that we leverage at once. We have teams that work on specific parts of the platform, but are operating in silos. So they don't know what other people are doing. And that's why we get things like redundant code. That's why we get contradictions within automations and triggers and things like that. So we're seeing Sweep as like step one. Like for those companies, we come in and the diagnostics phase is like eye-opening for them. So I think that's really been really beneficial. And then there's also the fact that Demetrius, you spoke about this before. There are all these point solutions that we integrate in, or at the larger scale companies that we just replicate and build with our own because maybe security reasons or whatever, that we're able to simplify and kind of bring home into one place in an easy to manage place. Having everything on one platform creates scalability in the sense that your CPU usage, your SQL query limits, they're all coming from one platform and they're optimized to work with each other. So we're actually seeing companies whose use cases, hey, we're stuck because we hit CPU timeout issues all the time, that are able to move certain pieces of their build onto Sweep specifically to avoid that, because the way that Sweep is architected is designed to avoid that. So we're those are like kind of like exemplary of some of the benefits that we're seeing for like those large orgs, hot mess under the hood. We need to figure something out quickly. And the sad thing is the alternative, which we've seen a lot of times, is some people are like, we're at the point where we might just start over. We know it's going to take us 2 years. We know it's going to be terrible for our sales reps while we're totally ignoring the org that we have right now and rebuilding a new org from scratch in 2 years, but it's the only solution. That's what some people genuinely think. That's the problems that we have come into and seen. And, we're in the process of helping to alleviate, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I think learning curve for the organization is often forgotten. And I think there's a national use case here with your solution. I love the fact that you can actually type in and you can see what it does, like what it really is not doing, and then all of that is in one place. Like Lizzie said at the beginning, right? Like I finally can educate myself and see, what actually workflows that we put out there. Right? Is this really doing something for me? And if it does, I'm really interested. I want to know exactly what type of fields and information is consuming, and so that I can understand the output and how this shapes the output. That's extremely important. I mean, guys, I've been there so many times that I've been asked what it does for me, and then you have a custom fields in Salesforce, and finally just concatenation of multiple sources, and like, how is this really compiled? Okay, I can't see. So education element is also forgotten, but it has a tremendous impact on the decision how people operate in the organization, and how they really think about the business, how they think about the job. So I think it's just an observation based on what I saw, and I'm trying to connect the dots with my experiences. So guys, think about the product. How you think about this product in the future. So what is the next thing for you guys that that you see on the roadmap that will be either a big milestone or another project you're focusing on, so that because your customers or future customers want to see?
So I think the next big thing for us is, as I said earlier, is what I call the free version. And the free version is not, the way we see it, it's not just going to be a free trial. Just take it for a couple of weeks and see if you want it, and then upgrade. The vision is more, I would put it in simple words. We want Sweep to be the golden standard in working with Salesforce. So everybody that is working on Salesforce should work within a couple of years over Sweep. There should be the old way of like writing code into Salesforce, doing the manual things. And there is the modern way, which is using a platform that does it in a much simple way. The first step for this is to give people access to this. And today the access is very much like B2B oriented. We need to talk with a business. It's a platform that they need to bring in, and not the capability that everybody could have. And I think this is a big milestone for us, especially from the numbers of users we expect, but also from the difference in the features. We would be able to see what are more business-oriented features, admin-oriented features. And yeah, that's the plan, more or less.
That's great. It's awesome to come out with a complex product like this, to be able to come up with a self-serve version within 2 years. So that's super exciting. We slightly touched on competitors before, but we didn't really dig in there. When I'm thinking about, I'm wondering if there's any other tools or platforms that do this. But I'm thinking more around like what Ben had mentioned of like, let's just rip this out and rebuild it, or like, let's just figure out how to make it work as is. And then the other one is like, can we hire a Salesforce consultant to come in and help us redo all of this? But what are you guys seeing in terms of competitors and when you're talking to potential customers?
I would definitely say we don't see a lot of competition on the direct offering as we offer. We do see a massive competition that we call it the status quo, which is keep on doing the thing that you used to do, working with partners, changing partners, hiring internal admin. Like, people are so used to the situation that this is how Salesforce life should look like, that they're not even complaining. For some of them, they're actually saying, but we didn't think that should be another way. And this is kind of the narrative they're hearing. So I would say, obviously, as we also said earlier, we do see products helping for specific personas, like tools for admins. There are a lot, from roll-ups to documentation. There are tools for this. But obviously, those tools are selling directly to the admin to improve the admin life and not giving the entire solution. We do see a lot of tools around the automations and the experience of the AE, or connecting Slack to Salesforce. We do see competition over there on the feature level. But again, on the concept level of improving the Salesforce experience for everybody, we still think the most of it is status quo, working with partners, and just feeling uncomfortable as we hear from people.
It's like Stockholm syndrome. Like, people are just like, this is how it's always going to be.
It's funny. It's even more than that. It's they're offboarding the problem without dealing with the solution. They're not saying, I'm going to give it to a partner and all of these problems are going to go away. Like, if you've been around the Salesforce world long enough, that's not what you expect. What you expect is, I'm going to offboard these problems and somebody else is going to deal with them. It's just not me. And that type of thinking shows you that this is an area that can be improved by light years. And that's really, the opportunity that we see.
So guys, let me ask you this question. I'm listening to this and I realize that you actually trying to change the paradigm in this space. That's really hard to do in any industry, in any market. How are you planning to change that? Because everything we said before about, okay, let's figure it out. I have a Salesforce. It sucks. It doesn't give me what I want. And I'm throwing more money into this because I need more buddies, right? I have a 1 million already of buying on an application. And then I have another million or more keeping these people on the payroll, right? Just to make it work. That's expensive, buddy, right? And again, I'm going with the kind of my finance hat up to the cost, because every single time when I see this, I'm always wondering why it has to be that way. So with your solution, you're definitely bringing a lot of value in other space, but getting a cost 20, 30% down, that's very telling. And I know that it varies, but it's quite a bit. So changing the way people operate is what Aviv said, as a competitor, identify a competitor as a status quo. It's almost like it's going against everybody, right? It's easy to be, a pessimist among all the optimists, but it's really hard to be an optimist among all the pessimists, right? So it is. I feel like it's a similar situation. Say, hey guys, like you don't have to do it that way. Oh no, we do it always like this. I've been in 5 other companies. I've done this 5 times like this. That's hard. I'm always finding this as probably the most difficult part of selling in that mode. So how are you planning to change this? It's my question.
They're coming on a podcast, going to reach millions of people, and everyone's going to be on board. No, I'm kidding, obviously.
Well, I wish that would be true, but it's a real question, guys.
I mean, I would say from my perspective, first of all, we like the hard stuff. And I think the bigger the complexity, so as the reward, because we're talking on a real disruption here. And again, we're a startup. Ben and I are working for the startup, and we love working for startups. And you need this, this part of like risk or excitement that drives you. But again, and we are probably the most biased people. But when you see this works, you understand, how did I do it before? Like, and again, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some, growth in terms of like the product and the business until we will get the reach that we want. Again, the market is enormous, so it's great for us. But again, I think once you see this thing at work and you try to blend in the overall trends of like where technology is going, how technology usage is going. If you would ask someone that used Salesforce 10 or 15 years ago, it's a different sales rep, the sales rep of the future, the sales teams of the future. So I think we're in this motion of the future of go-to-market, and it's very much aligned. Now all we need to do is, to get the chances to prove it.
Well, the market changes and trends must somewhat be helping, right? So even when you started 2 years ago, people were able to throw a lot more money at problems. And as that, it kind of contracts across the tech industry, there must be opportunities to go in and say, more opportunities to say, hey, we can save you money and you don't have to go and hire someone else to fix that. How are you guys thinking about the market trends in go-to-market in general? What are you seeing?
So I think we have a few interesting observations here. One, as you said, people are cutting budgets. This is not a new thing. This is probably something that is happening in the last 18 months already, especially in the go-to-market. And I think for us, it's an opportunity because again, this narrative of cutting costs, of focusing on what's important, of not spending too much money on tools that eventually you find that, you have 5 tools that you're paying for and they all do the same thing or all have those capabilities. And I think this is smart for Sweep to focus on the tool that you will not replace, which is Salesforce, and empowering this capability. And when we see it with other players in the market in general, tools or companies are trying to consolidate and to bring more capabilities into the platform plate. And what we are doing, with again also talks directly with the trend, is we help you build a better Salesforce. So a more robust Salesforce that is not dependent on external tools, that is not dependent on contractors that might come to the company, do a project and leave. So we help companies build a robust engine. And again, we definitely see it. Companies are coming to us because they want to cut all the collateral tools, all the point solution, and really build a better Salesforce because this is the tool that they cannot replace.
I mean, I'm in a position that you should be always cutting costs. The question is where and how, right? I mean, I know this is just this year phenomenon. Everybody's looking for productivity, and cutting costs. But in fact, when you're running a business, you have to always think about this. And if you are very effective with your scaling process in your company, and talk about the SMB and the startup specifically, I think you're saving this as you go. You don't have to worry about this when you are efficiently scaling, right? So this is where what I feel like market forgot about that, and suddenly he's just in this wake up mode. Oh yeah, we got to cut the cost. Well, you never thought about this? Come on. So that's what I think will be one argument for your solution, guys. And also will help you tremendously to prove the case. Another one is what you just said before. It's the self-serve mode, and then people will start figuring out, I don't need people to come in and really do it. I can do it myself. That is very empowering element of your offering, or will be, right? And so to me, this is another argument that will get you on track with changing that paradigm. And it's the ease of use and ease of deployment and seeing almost immediately the results. That's very compelling. So that's my take on that part. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. How are you approaching the generative AI, and what do you think about this? How is it going to impact your solution, but also the space that you're operating?
I just want to quickly say your use of generative AI in the platform is already one of the better use cases I've seen of it. So I'm excited to hear how you're thinking about it.
So the way that we think about generative AI and the way that we're leveraging generative AI is very emblematic of how we think about the trends at large, right? So we're using it within our platform to help people better understand their Salesforce, right? Like I alluded to it when I was doing the demo, like the discovery phase of what is going wrong is 90% of the battle, right? Figuring out what's wrong in Salesforce is 90% of the battle. If you can do that much more efficiently, you can understand what are going to be the consequences of any changes that I make. If you can get to that answer much faster, you can fix things much faster, or you can build new things much faster, right? And that's how we're leveraging generative AI. It's a tool for us to better, to do things that we're competent enough to do. It's just going to take us a lot more time, right? And today, that's where we see the best use cases for generative AI. It's enabling people to focus on the things that they're best suited for, right? I haven't been hired in my career because I was good at Salesforce. It definitely helped in my interview processes and things like that. But what makes good Salesforce people get hired is stuff that they could do outside of Salesforce. It's thinking about the business. It's how to scale the business, how to grow the business. It's how to apply Salesforce to solve business problems. It's really the merging of the technology and the business acumen, right? Generative AI is a tool like that. It helps you get to the Salesforce part much faster so that you can focus on the business part, because that's really where you bring value. Same thing, like I said before, we're seeing people that are feeling like they can hire more analytical people and less technical people, right? That's how we think about generative AI. It's helping us get to the end solution.
Once someone starts using Sweep, obviously the generative AI helps with the setup process and figuring out what's actually going on. But how quickly do people start to see value from it? Is it a couple weeks, a couple days, a couple months? What do you typically see?
It depends what use case they're leading with, right? So if the use case is documentation and like an understanding of what's going on under the hood, 10 minutes after putting in their Salesforce credentials, they can start to get insights. If they want to build an end-to-end process and deploy it to an org, it depends how comprehensive the process is. Again, we're talking somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour. But again, there are much more complex use cases where the time to value is longer than that. But depending on what you're trying to accomplish first, the world is your oyster.
It's not like implementing Gainsight and it takes months to set up. No shade on Gainsight. I think it's a great product, but
you connect when you connect to Sweep begins parsing your metadata, reading, understanding, and that process, again, depending on the size of the org, but really we're seeing like a mean of about 10 minutes, 10 minutes to complete the parse. And then you have the tool, right?
That's incredible.
You can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
The wow effect is very impressive once you're seeing everything that is in your Salesforce. I must say that in orgs that I worked before, if I would have Sweep, the value is getting the wow effect within 10 minutes and then closing my computer and going to drink something because I understood I had so much work to do. But again, the value is immediate. And the question is what you're doing with it after.
That's your sales pitch. If you have Sweep, you can get to drinks earlier, and that should be it.
We know what he's doing afterward.
Or for a different reason. Those are drinks of celebration versus
despair.
being desperate.
Yeah.
But
It's actually funny that you say that because one of really, really early on at my time at Sweep, it was like probably right after we spun up like an actual UI. So we're talking like the first days of like Sweep really, making a difference for people. I was working on Sweep and I pinged our CEO. I said, I have the best idea for a marketing campaign, which is Sweep enables RevOps people and Salesforce admins to eat lunch. Because thinking back on my almost 10 years in this space now, the amount of times that I've skipped lunch or just shoved lunch down my throat while I was doing something else, because that was the amount of time in the day. Like you said before, Lizzie, like there's a never ending backlog. So if you're going to prioritize eating your lunch, you're sacrificing something in your backlog.
Yeah.
So Sweep enables people to have lunch. That was my great idea. And obviously I'm not a marketer, as you can tell by the tagline.
You never know. But I think you picked the healthier option. Aviv mentioned about drinks after hours. So
the small difference between Ben.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
So we'd love to hear from both of you on what other companies in the go-to-market space right now are you excited about or I think are doing a great job?
One company that I think is doing a great job is Apollo. And I think it might be because they have, for a different problem space, like a very similar approach to Sweep in that it's a platform that's designed to help multiple personas in the same part of the business, right? So they're focused on selling, and they help you with your data, they help you with your sequencing, they help you with your call recording. And it's a really comprehensive approach to an area of the business. Maybe that's why I have an affinity towards it. But we have been customers for several months now, and excited about some of the things it's unlocking for our business.
Yeah, I was aware of Apollo, and then I went to HubSpot Inbound. I know, not Salesforce, but I heard Apollo's name so many times. It is like they've taken the world by storm. So I've been keeping my my ears tuned to anything about Apollo. Do you see that you could potentially collaborate with them in some fashion? I know you're solving different problems, but do you think at some point you would ever partner or work together?
Yeah, I could see really interesting use cases for, most go-to-market tools within Sweep. like as like technology partners, right? Being able to push people based on something happening in Salesforce, being able to automatically push somebody into a sequence and launch that sequence, right? So I think for all the SEPs, I think that's like a great use case. And I'm sure if I really sat down and thought about it harder, there's a lot more there. So I'm excited for that chapter, which is going to come soon. We're starting to think about and talk about other ways that we can help the systems admin, RevOps persona, leveraging all of the tools that they use and kind of bringing them into one place.
Very cool. Aviv, do you have any that you want to share?
Yeah, actually, there is one tool called Fathom, which is also call recording software. And the reason, my story with call recording software goes way back. The most simple way that I can tackle this specific platform is they made it, their business model is smart. Most of the people that doing calls recording need the most basic capability of recording a call automatically. And then they add up the services if you want to upgrade and go up. And this is the best or the most interesting and relevant business model comparing to other solutions which are very much enterprise, very much expensive. And then you end up buying a very expensive tool that you're not really using, or you're using very small part of the capability. So I think they cracked something in the business model that is very smart. You can start free. You can use it for your needs. If you have more advanced needs, then you can start paying. Yeah, and I feel this is like very interesting tool.
You're doing that with Sweep too, right? As you're going down to a self-service tool. So yeah, makes sense. Exciting.
I know Fathom actually the tool as well. We're hoping to get them on the podcast as well. Somewhere down the path, I talked to them a couple of months ago. So that is coming, and I think they're doing the right thing in that space. It's a high margin space too, that doesn't have a lot of competition. So it's a good move on their end, just making this a little bit more affordable, starting and changing the practice and learning how you can benefit, and then converting to something that is more premium.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like it became kind of commodity in today's tech world, and doing something that is already commoditized. It's a brave move, but if you bring the innovation through the business model, it's a smart play. So
yeah,
kudos to them.
Yeah, when I say the margins, I think look at Gong, they're doing pretty well, right? But of course they offer a little bit more than just recording, right, or transcript.
I'll share my whole screen.
A pop-in demo.
Yeah. The feedback that we get are people who are nervous. Well, like, what are these automations going to do to the rest of the automations that I have? How are they going to conflict with each other? Is this going to break everything?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I wanted to get ahead of. It's actually built on a totally separate automation layer. It uses Salesforce custom metadata records, which obviously are native to Salesforce, and they can be edited via the Sweep UI or the Salesforce UI. So it doesn't impact any of your existing flows. It runs totally separately, and it's the way that it's built is designed to help avoid CPU timeout issues, SQL query limits, and the like.
This is helpful, and is this extra security policy for these people that are working in this other Salesforce admins or admins in general, especially when you communicate with your stakeholders, right? You want to ensure that, okay, guys, we're working on this. This is the proposal, or this, this is a saved draft. We didn't deploy this yet, so don't get panicked, right? Here we go. And then you're getting buy-in, or you're sharing with the teams how it's going to work.
And even after it's deployed, it's not going to impact any of the existing teams or anything like that. So both prior to deployment and after deployment, it's not something to be concerned about.
That is helpful.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and talking all about Sweep. It was great to have both of you. And I learned a lot about Salesforce and what we could do to fix it. So I appreciate it.
There you go.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the RevTech Podcast. Please subscribe on the listening platform of your choice and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing.